Hey there. Tomorrow's full moon in Gemini is a midway point, speaking about how we're also maybe at crossroads in our life, crossroads in our decisions, in our planning, in our efforts. And that is specifically because this full moon is in a perfect square, 90-degree angle axis to both the south node and the north node, which are of course the points that create the eclipses. So we're at the halfway point between the last eclipse cycle, 3 months ago, and the coming one, which will be in roughly 3 months. This would be true for any kind of full moon this type of year with the nodes where they are right now, but it gets highlighted and the symbolism deepens so much because this full moon is perfectly square. They're all on 13 degrees. The full moon in Gemini, the sun in Sagittarius, the south node in Virgo, and the north node in Pisces. 13 degrees of these respective signs, which are also the mutable signs. So I'm going to say a word to that in a moment. But also just, of course, the basic understanding of every full moon is that the full moon illuminates the, maybe up until here, subconscious, semi-conscious, emotional, sentimental patterns of our psyche. When the sun highlights the conscious life force where it's centered right now, we're in Sagittarius season, the focus and drive is on the Sagittarian energy, at least consciously in one way or another, the full moon highlights the polar opposite to bring integration of what seems to be opposites into a greater unifying whole. Which is, of course, also so much what the trickstery mercurial sign of Gemini is about, showing us that both left and right and up and down are all just like a Rubik's Cube you can play with. And what is one in one moment can be the other one in the next moment. But also that there's infinite gradients of gray in between, and that we get stuck in Gemini in the seeming duality and polarity of polar opposites as long as we think there is a polar opposite. Gemini, by its very nature, reveals to us that if we want to approach or approximate something like a truth or ultimate truth, in the very end, we will always meet a certain paradox where two seeming opposites are true at the same time, but through both of them being true, they don't nullify each other, but that this paradox actually opens kind of the gateway. Even the glyph of Gemini can be seen as a gateway, right? These two pillars with also the two straight lines up and down, that this paradox opens kind of a gateway for us. So full moon in Gemini, of course, we're thinking about Gemini, the mind, communication, nervous system, insights. But the deeper part here and the connection to the lunar nodes reveals so much to us an impetus, a drive, a necessity to surrender, to become mentally open in such a way that we really let go of preconceived old mental patterns or pathways or viewpoints or identities that we form around them, so that we can approximate something like greater truth, even if it's just for us personally in our own personal life journey, not necessarily ultimate truth, that we can only really approximate that by stepping through this portal of paradox and letting go of the identification with mind or our thoughts, our visions, our perceptions about ourselves, the path, life, our struggles, that all of these are in one way or another traps. The south node being in Virgo and the full moon in Gemini, the two signs ruled by Mercury, right? And the sun is in Sagittarius and the north node in Pisces, two signs ruled traditionally by Jupiter. These two are polar opposites, again, the seeming opposites, of the mind, nervous system, left brain, Mercury, and intuition, association, and ability to just intuitively grasp truth, to just know things, right? And going with the flow of that and trusting and making leaps of faith. That's the Jupiter domain. Since the south node is in Virgo, it implies that we need to let go certain Virgoan tendencies or patterns within ourselves that don't serve us any longer, where perfectionism and our drive to need to be seen as productive or useful or feel productive or useful ourselves. And the identities that we form around that can limit how we experience Pisces, the flow of life, the flow of reality, the flow of everything comes in the right timing. So with that, we can get stuck so much also in a forceful approach to reality in which we try to make things happen. And here is the big subtext of this current full moon. We, of course, just had Mercury and Saturn shift from retrograde to direct. With Mercury, it would not necessarily feel quite as big, but because Saturn also just did the same thing, just heightens and deepens again the symbolism and the energetics of these movements. And even though it implies, okay, now is the time for forward movement and also new clarity, new vision, new insight, new understanding, both the Jupiter and the Mercury side of our psyche will emerge now. Saturn stationing is always like a time slowing down. Saturn is the ruler of time itself, linear time, kairos time. It slows down the perception of time. And since it starts moving only very slowly to really begin its forward momentum, just like Mercury, of course, he's much quicker, but still Mercury did not really move at all since it's stationing a couple of days ago. The last couple of days might have felt a lot like time is standing still, like you're not moving forward, and like you maybe also don't need to. The subtext is, of course, that there is a lot of gestation happening below the surface right now, below the surface of our conscious mind, that these new insights and understandings will emerge. Mercury is still in Scorpio, right? He's the ruler of this full moon, and he is still in Scorpio. So it's still about penetrating illusions, but also our emotional attachments that give us a sense of safety and control over our lives. And this again leading to these identifications and patterns of where and how then also judgment can come in very strongly, judgment being a Saturn archetype. And the other big undertone and undercurrent of this full moon is, of course, that the square to the nodal axis that impels us to go towards the north node in Pisces and the trust and surrender and having the flow within our own self to trust that every lull moment will also be followed again by a rise, by an ascension of energy. There is this natural sine wave pattern, but that in general and also collectively, the end of Saturn and Neptune in Pisces is this very, very, very big lull moment right now. So you might be much more in it than your partner or your best friend or the other way around. But regardless, it is there. It is there very, very strongly on the collective field. Sagittarius likes to do things yesterday, always quick and always fast and always forward movement, and getting there now, please, and moving through whatever might be blocking us in that path, in that way. And Gemini energy, of course, can also be very quick and agile and moving. And so, yeah, sure, we could also go into the profane interpretations of this full moon, meaning like, oh, you might have a conversation and that sparks a new insight, and because of that, you're able to release these deeper attachments, right? Or there's a lot of mental, active energy in your nervous system. Maybe you had coffee too much or too these days, the next days with this full moon energy, and you really feel this buzzing forward movement and needing to connect, needing to see and hear different viewpoints to not get too stuck in where and how Sagittarius energy can become dogmatic or even zealous with it's one way, this is the truth. Both still point by their nature being square to the north and south node to the energy of the north node, to a certain trust and surrender, to also this end of the Saturn and Neptune cycle. And interestingly, the next new moon in 2 weeks, right around the December solstice on the 20th of December, will be at the very end of Sagittarius, and thus also squaring Neptune and Saturn. that moment again might feel like a lot of blockages or slowing down, or the frustration that might bring up in regards to our deeper vision or deeper calling, deeper vocation, deeper meaning that we want to find with Sagittarius. This full moon right now in the interim just illuminates how much letting go of where and how we judge ourselves in regards to a standard of unachievable perfection that Virgo likes to play around with or also get stuck in, that we're really meant to let that go in many ways, and that viewing ourselves, seeing ourselves from a different viewpoint and freeing our mind, we just come out of this Mercury retrograde. Pardon me. We just come out of this Mercury retrograde, and thus, like I said, the forward momentum will bring a lot of clarity and insight and a lot of new understandings. All the deep stuff, especially in Scorpio, that we did over the past weeks and weeks, will slowly bear fruit. But right now, there is still this gestation energy, and Mercury is still in Scorpio. There's still a lot of the things happening below the surface, even of what we can consciously grasp. You might feel it more in your dreams, or while you're trying to fall asleep, or in meditation, or as you just drift off, that your mind is maybe being drawn to very deep things, very profound things, or very old things emotionally, but not necessarily very mentally articulated yet in regards to what these old insights or new insights into old mechanics help reveal about you and your life path. And this is also the symbolism of the full moon is so interesting, because there's the Sabian symbols. I'm sure many of them know them. There's specific symbols channeled for every single degree of the zodiac. And if I'm not fully mistaken, the one for 13 Gemini, where this full moon is happening, talks about telepathy, the bridging of two minds, the bridging of two men. But here also this invisible mental connection and these invisible transmissions of insights and energy that we can't fully grasp, and which also ask us, Pisces, to surrender, to come into grace, but also come into self-forgiveness. And in that way, learn to really see and understand and speak about our journey, the way we talk about ourselves, about our ideals, our visions, the Sagittarius energy, our aims and ambitions, which is also Sagittarius and leading to Capricorn, but also our past, our wounds, Pisces and Scorpio, our emotional body and how that has been conditioned because of that. The way we talk about that, the way we analyze and understand that, but then frame it, that limits us and limits reality in a major way. So the medicine here is still so much this energy of Pisces, of forgiveness, compassion, patience with ourselves as well. Letting go of the pressure and the judgment, trusting that next year will bring an immense forward momentum wave. And even now with Saturn and Mercury starting to slowly move forward, the feeling of linear time being maybe very slow or heavy the last couple of days will also slowly shift over the next week or so. But still, it's a gradual shift, and it's funky energy. It's just really funky, because there is so much fire. Mars is in Sagittarius, Venus is in Sagittarius, the Sun is in Sagittarius, but so much of the heavens still constellate an image of slow down, release, trust, no need to rush, slow and steady wins the race. If you feel that energy, once that fire and spark is there, go for it. But if it doesn't want to flow, don't force it, right? So yeah, that's just a few insights, few words on this full moon. I hope you've got a good one. If you enjoyed this, or if you want to share some of your personal experiences with it, let me know in the comments below. And as always, you can meet me for one-on-one sessions to explore the archetypal drama and dynamics and the blueprint of your own soul and its life path through this incarnation, through this weird, crazy, cosmic human journey together with me. I always feel very honored if you want to meet me, and info is in the links, and see you next time. Bye bye.